Imagine two people receiving the exact same paycheck every month. One spends most of their time trying to increase the next paycheck. The other spends their time trying to escape the need for a paycheck altogether. At first, the difference seems insignificant. Both go to work, both earn money, both appear to be moving in the same direction. But fast forward 20 years, and their lives often look completely different. One is still dependent on the next payment arriving on schedule. The other owns things that continue generating income whether they work or not. So what happened? The answer lies in a distinction that has shaped fortunes for centuries. While most people focus on income, the wealthy tend to focus on ownership, not because paychecks are unimportant, but because they understand something many people never fully realize. A paycheck pays you once, an asset can pay you for years. And that single idea may be one of the biggest reasons wealth accumulates so differently across society. In 1962, a young investor named Warren Buffett began buying shares of a struggling textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. At the time, it didn't seem like a life-changing decision. It was just another investment, another asset, another piece of ownership. Few people could have imagined that decades later, Berkshire Hathaway would become one of the most valuable companies in the world and help make Buffett one of the wealthiest individuals in history. What's interesting isn't the investment itself, it's the way Buffett was thinking. Most people focus on income, Buffett focused on ownership, and that distinction reveals one of the most important ideas in wealth creation. Because earning money and owning assets are not the same thing. When you earn a paycheck, you're exchanging time, skills, or labor for compensation. It's a perfectly normal arrangement. In fact, it's how most people begin their financial journey. The problem isn't earning a paycheck. The problem is believing that a paycheck alone creates wealth. A paycheck creates income. Assets create wealth. Those are two very different things. Imagine a person who earns $100,000 per year. Every month, money enters their bank account, but the moment they stop working, the flow largely stops as well. Now imagine someone who owns a rental property, a business, shares in productive companies, intellectual property, or other income-generating assets. Those assets may continue producing value even when the owner isn't actively working. This is why wealthy individuals often become obsessed with ownership. They're not asking, "How much can I earn?" They're asking, "What can I own?" Because ownership changes the relationship between effort and reward. For most workers, income is tied directly to participation. No work, no paycheck. Assets operate differently. A share of stock represents ownership in a business. A rental property represents ownership in real estate. A successful brand represents ownership of customer attention and trust. Each asset has the potential to generate future value. And that's where wealth begins to compound. Historically, some of the greatest fortunes were built through ownership rather than labor. John D. Rockefeller didn't personally refine every barrel of oil. Andrew Carnegie didn't manufacture every piece of steel. Modern founders don't personally serve every customer. What they own creates value at scale. The same principle applies on a smaller level. You don't need to own an empire to benefit from ownership. The concept remains the same. Ownership allows effort to extend beyond the moment it was created. This creates a powerful difference in incentives. Most people spend their financial lives optimizing income. A raise, a promotion, a better-paying job. The wealthy often spend their financial lives acquiring assets, businesses, stocks, real estate, intellectual property, digital assets. They're playing a different game. One group is focused on increasing cash flow today. The other is focused on increasing ownership of future cash flow. That distinction sounds subtle, but over years and decades, it becomes enormous. Because assets have a unique characteristic, they can appreciate. A paycheck rarely grows while you're sleeping. An asset can. A paycheck doesn't usually increase in value because the economy expands. A productive asset often can. And perhaps most importantly, assets can compound. The income generated by one asset can be used to acquire another, then another, then another. Eventually, a system begins to form, one where wealth starts generating more wealth. And that's the point where the financial game changes completely. The wealthy understand this intuitively, which is why they often seem less interested in what they earn today and more interested in what they own tomorrow. But ownership alone doesn't explain everything. Because many people understand assets in theory, very few actually prioritize them in practice, and that's where the real difference begins. If the advantages of owning assets are so powerful, why don't more people focus on them? The answer isn't intelligence, and it isn't a lack of information. Most people already know that investing, owning businesses, or acquiring assets can build wealth. The real challenge is psychological, because paychecks provide something assets often don't: immediate rewards. You work, you get paid. The relationship is clear, direct, predictable. Assets operate differently. They usually require sacrifice today in exchange for benefits that may not appear for years. That's a difficult trade for the human brain. We're naturally wired to prioritize immediate rewards over future ones. Behavioral economists call this present bias, our tendency to value benefits today more highly than benefits tomorrow. It's one reason people struggle to save money, stick to long-term goals, or invest consistently. The future feels distant. The present feels urgent, and that's where the paths of wealth creation begin to separate. Imagine two individuals receiving a salary increase. The first person upgrades their lifestyle: a nicer apartment, a newer car, more expensive habits. Nothing unusual. In fact, it's exactly what many people do. The second person makes a different decision. They use part of that additional income to acquire assets, perhaps stocks, perhaps a business, perhaps real estate, perhaps a digital asset that generates future income. At first, the difference is almost invisible. Both people appear to be improving their lives, but over time, something remarkable happens. The first person's lifestyle expands. The second person's ownership expands. One accumulates expenses, the other accumulates assets. Years later, the outcomes can look dramatically different. This is why many wealthy individuals spend less time asking, "What can I buy?" and more time asking, "What can I own?" Because ownership creates optionality. A person dependent entirely on a paycheck often has limited flexibility. A person with income-producing assets gains choices about where to work, how to spend time, what risks to take, what opportunities to pursue. And ultimately, freedom is what many wealthy people are actually trying to acquire. Not luxury, not status. Freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing your financial future isn't tied exclusively to your next paycheck. This is also why wealthy individuals often think differently about spending. The average person may see money as something to consume. The wealthy often see money as a tool for acquiring productive assets. Every dollar becomes a potential employee, a resource that can be put to work, a seed that can grow into something larger. That mindset doesn't guarantee wealth, but over long periods, it dramatically changes financial outcomes, because wealth is rarely built through one extraordinary decision. It's usually built through repeated decisions that favor ownership over consumption, asset acquisition over lifestyle inflation, long-term value over short-term gratification. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all. The rich don't focus on assets because they're obsessed with investments. They focus on assets because assets solve a problem that paychecks never can. They create value beyond the hours a person personally works. The difference between the wealthy and everyone else isn't simply how much money they make. It's often how they think about money in the first place. Most people use income to support their lifestyle. The wealthy use income to acquire ownership. One approach depends on continuous effort. The other gradually builds sources of value that can continue producing results over time. That's why a paycheck and an asset are fundamentally different. A paycheck rewards work already completed. An asset has the potential to reward ownership far into the future. And over decades, that difference can become extraordinary, because wealth isn't just about earning more, it's about owning more of what creates value. Now I'd like to hear your perspective. If you could own one type of asset for the next 20 years, what would it be? Stocks, real estate, a business, a media brand, intellectual property? Share your answer in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden principles behind wealth, business, psychology, and success, subscribe and join us for the next deep dive. Because sometimes the biggest financial breakthroughs begin with a simple shift in how you see the world.